Hi, this is Neil Mercer. Second video on how to play folk guitar or guitar at folk sessions. And this one I'm going to look at how to find the key of tunes and how to pick out chords from that. Now again, this is just based on my experience of attending folk sessions. I started going to folk sessions about 15 years ago, having listened to, I was a bit of a fan of Fairport Convention since my teenage years. I didn't really start going to folk sessions learning how to play folk music until about 15 years ago when I started going to folk sessions. So again, I'm not musically trained. There might be things in this that are sort of technically wrong, but it's just really how I do it to help you out. First thing is, when you go to folk sessions, most of the tunes that play there, if you're accompanying tunes played by fiddles, melodeons, flutes, things like that, they're mostly going to be either in G, the key of G, the key of D, or in a minor key, E minor. There tend to be the three keys you get, or you might occasionally get A minor, B minor, and occasionally someone will just throw in something a bit random, okay? But normally G, D, or E minor, which makes life actually very simple in terms of finding the chords. So, one of the most useful things someone ever taught me, my friend Matt Kilford, who's a brilliant guitar teacher, and it was just one of those 2-minute things. He just showed me something. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Is that the chords within a key? Okay. So if I start off with G, for example, if we've got the G major scale. And I've never really learned scales properly on the guitar. You might have seen me hesitate there to work out what the next note is, okay? All right, but there we go. And now if I just play the chords for those notes, what you need to know which is major and minor, but they will be G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, and then it's what's actually, I think, a G, an F sharp diminished, and then back to G, okay? But you can hear, that just makes sense, doesn't it? It just sounds right. Now, all of those are, you can look them up, the chords within in the major keys, okay? You can look them up and it's very simple. I'll put that on a link in the comments. Very easy to see then, you can have them all written down in front of you. Okay, now the weird one is the diminished one. Now, my little trick with this, I've never really properly got my head around diminished chords. I occasionally use them. My little trick with this, with that one, I play a D, but with an F sharp bass, and I do that a lot actually, but with the thumb gone around like that. You can actually play it with the first finger there as well, like that. That's not, I don't think, and sometimes I might do the D7 as well, which sounds, and I think that's pretty much the diminished chord, but it's, I don't think it's entirely right, but it kind of sounds okay. It kind of gets away with it. I do a lot of fudging in my playing, a lot of shortcuts, and like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing, okay? Now, in a tune in G, you can play pretty much any of those chords and it won't sound terrible. It might not sound quite right, but you can get away with that. So once you know those, okay, and you can, if you're sitting and listening to a tune and you can work out that's in G, just try some of those chords. Now the main ones are going to be, I'm just looking this up because I can never remember properly. That's the first chord in a G, and then the fourth chord is a C. Is that right? G, C, yeah. And the fifth is a D, okay? And I think that comes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. And that's kind of the basis of most pop songs and everything else, okay? Is it? So you'll recognise that, okay? And yeah, most of the time they're going to be in there. So try those first, but then, yeah, you can throw in the extra chords, and as I said, it probably won't sound, they won't sound wrong. Within the key of D, so we've got D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor, D flat diminished, think. And then back to D again, okay? So D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor. Now what I do with that diminished chord is I play an A with my first finger, okay? And then with my third finger here I play a D flat on the A string. Again, that's an inversion. That means I'm playing the A chord but with a D flat as the bass note. And because the D flat is in the chord of A, okay, inversions, I'm going to show you another, one of the next videos, I'm going to sort of show passing chords, and a lot of those are inversions, okay? But that's what I'm playing. It's a fudged version of the diminished chord that sounds okay. If I play that as an A seventh, which is, that sounds a little bit more like the diminished chords, okay? But it's quite awkward to play that, so I just play it with an A like that. Okay, so D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor, A with a D flat bass, D. Okay, and again you can throw in any of those chords. Again, with a D, your fourth chord is a G, and then your fifth chord is an A. So it's going to be mainly those three chords that you're going to pick up. So I've been onto the session.org. I've kind of picked out some random tunes and just tried to play along with them, and I'll show you kind of what I do. If someone comes along and they're just playing a tune I've never heard of before, quite often, I surprise myself sometimes, quite often I can just play along with it because and a lot of this just comes down to experience, just listening to different folk tunes, and just because there's so many similarities and so many just common traits in folk tunes, that once you've heard a few of them and you've worked them out, once you've been doing it a while, just, oh, I know where that tune's going. The tricky ones are the ones that don't go where you're expecting them to go, and they trip you up with some sort of weird timing, and they're the really interesting ones and sometimes the best ones, but they might take a bit of effort to learn. Okay, and that's one of the great moments in folk sessions, when you go along, oh, what's that one doing? And if, you know, most people are really nice and will play it through again slowly, so you can sort of sit and work it out together, or maybe they can help you with the chords, or, you know, oh, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Oh, it's going there, right? Okay, why is it okay? And that's you know, part of the joy of it. If it was all really straightforward, it'd probably be a bit boring. I have picked out some random tunes off the session.org. Again, I'll put the tunes into the comments. The first tune, this is a tune I picked pretty much at random from the session.org. I don't think I've played this at a session, I don't recognise it. It's called Dr. O'Neill. So let's have a little listen to that, and I'll just show you how I'd go about doing that. Just slow the tempo down a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do, kind of get a feel for the rhythm. Now what key is it in? It's not in G. No. Okay, so it sounds like it might be in D. Yes. Right. On that first chord, it's in D. Okay. And it is actually a, just to look it up, it's a jig. Okay. So it's got that sort of triplet rhythm. Okay, it's in 6/8. But what am I going to do with the chords? It's gone onto the B part now. Well, first I'm going to just playing D, A and G is alright actually, okay? I could get away with playing that through the tune and it would sound fine actually. Now what else might I do if I throw in... Oh, that sounds alright then. So throwing an E minor, which is again... Okay, through an E minor there, sounded okay actually. The tricky thing is finding kind of I think the rhythm and the pattern of the chords sometimes. Again, that just comes from kind of experience, but if you've got that, finding the rhythm and then just playing around with those chords, does work. Now another thing is, I think if you put in the relative minor, pause that for a second. This is something I've really only started doing fairly recently. More is what's called the relative minor. So in a D, okay, the relative minor is a B minor. Okay, D to B minor. In G, it's E minor. So I just think of it really as that if I'm playing in D, D's here, just go down 3 semitones. It's that. Go down to that, okay? And that's called the relative minor. Now you can throw that in alternately, and it just sounds really nice. It's just a nice little variation. So let me try it again. So I played on a little bit there. So basically, it's do do. So I was playing from a D to an A. But instead of, when on the second part, kind of the tune going around twice, on the second time, if I play the B minor instead of the D, and then instead of going to the D there, go to the B minor. Okay? Which just adds a really nice little tone to it. Somewhere else, I think. Anyway, but so there's an example in D. But you can now. The important thing to realise as well is that I don't think people will disagree on the chords all the time. And if you hear particularly melodeon players and accordion players, they're obviously playing chords as well as the melody. If you're just playing with a violin, you can be completely free with the chords, and it doesn't matter too much really if someone's playing slightly different chords to you, because as long as they're within the key. There are sometimes it will sound quite wrong. Sometimes you can be playing different chords and no one really notices. But it's also worth listening to. Sometimes I'll be playing a tune, or maybe a tune I've played for a long time, and then someone new will come along with a melodeon or an accordion, and I'll say, oh, they're playing some different chords, and I might stop and listen and try and work out what they're doing, and then find a completely new interpretation. There are tunes I've been playing for years and years, and sometimes the Butterflies one, where I saw Gig Spanner live do a lovely version of it, and I was just listening thinking, he's playing a different chord to what I normally play, and I could hear a difference, a tonal difference. I didn't know what it was when I was watching them, but I went back and found the version on YouTube, and I said, if I play a G instead of an E minor, that makes it a lot more interesting. So you can constantly adapt and constantly work on these things, and there's no definite right interpretation. If it sounds right to you, and no one's giving you funny looks at the session, or telling you it's completely wrong, then it's fine. So here's another one. This is a reel called Mrs. McCloud's. So again, I'm going to find the key. It's not in D. I know it's a major key. Obviously, hopefully you understand major keys sound happy, minor keys sound a bit sad. That does still work for me. So it's in G. So I know it's going to have a C and a D in it. Okay, let's play it again if I put it on repeat. Again, find that rhythm. 2, 3, 4. So So again, I'm just playing G, C and D there. Coming back to the root chord, the G in this case, on the 1 is quite important. So it doesn't really matter. I can play many variations on that and none of them are going to sound very wrong. This is a fairly simple tune. There's no sort of jarring chords or anything going a bit odd there, okay? So I'm playing just G, C and D in a fairly random order there, just making sure I come back to G on 1 and it's okay. Now other things I could do, well let's throw in some of those other chords that we covered earlier on in the key of G, and just see what happens. And you can see it. Getting it all right, but actually going from that A to a B minor sounds quite nice as well, isn't it? And that's nice, going from a G, E minor, so you can hear just throwing in some of those minor chords, they sound alright actually, I think. I don't think it's, there's a few there I wasn't completely convinced I was getting it right, but it wasn't, it was okay, okay? And again, you will hear melodians and accordion players with their own, they'll be throwing in some of those minors and try and pick up on what they're doing and follow them, okay? But I think what it goes to show is you can just keep it really simple. If the key is G, you can pretty much just play C and D, and you're fine, and you can just join in, and then once you get a bit more confident and once you start to know the tunes, then try some of the other chords. So you can make it as simple or as complex as you want, which is kind of the joy of this music really. There's no definite way to do it. Tunes have been played by many different people in many different ways, some for hundreds of years. Right, one other one to show you. This one's Kitty's Rambles. So something tunes do, okay? This one, I had a quick look at this. I've not really heard this one before, but I've checked this one out earlier on. It's in D, okay? And I think this is more, I believe this is what Irish tunes do a lot, as far as I'm aware. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but it's where, basically, if we're in D, okay, as well as those chords within the key, it might throw in a C. Okay, so you're basically playing the notes, and I can't remember the exact term for this. Okay, I'm afraid I haven't looked it up, but the chord, one tone below the chords of the key you're playing in. Now, let's have a look at this one. Kitty's Rambles. And this is, rhythm-wise, this is a jig, 6/8. Now, just from my experience, I know that's going to a C, and I think it's because I can hear that. I can hear that C note in there, okay, and it's quite distinct. So just if something sounds like that and you're not quite sure of how it's right, okay, then try throwing in the chord below. And occasionally tunes in a G will throw in an F as well, which is again the chord just a tone below. So watch out for that. It tends to happen more in D actually, and as I said, I think that's mainly Irish tunes that do that, but there's probably a whole theory there that I don't really understand. Okay, but again, that's just something I've heard over the years. Okay, tunes in a minor. In the session.org, you can search for tunes that, there is a whole sort of search facility. So if I search for a jig in E minor, let's just see what I find. The Stray Away Child, let's try that. It's a bit of a tricky one to find the rhythm, which I wasn't sure there for a minute. But I can tell it's a minor key, got the sad sounds. It's definitely E minor. Now, it's E minor. If I get the rhythm right, I can get away with just playing E minor and D, I think, pretty much all the way through that, unless it goes somewhere different in the B part. If I play a simpler rhythm, that's fine too. Now, what else can I do with this? Well, actually, I find minor keys very forgiving in terms of the chords you can throw in. Okay, so in an E minor, you can throw in an A minor, a B minor, a D, a G, a C. Okay, so let's throw some of those chords in and just see how that works. Yeah, and that kind of works, and you can throw them in pretty randomly. So I was really just making those up as I go along, but sounded okay. Again, not necessarily completely right, and I might adapt that as I went through if I was playing it more, okay, and try and get it sounding as well as I could, but it was okay. Another a little mention of Miles Foster here, who showed me a lovely trick, who actually understands music theory properly. But when you're playing in an E minor, you go from an E minor to a D quite often, okay, and then a C major seventh sounds lovely over an E minor, okay? And to do that, you're just playing the C, but taking that finger off, so you're playing the B instead of the C. That's really nice. And he also showed me, basically, if you play with the G as well, with the G on the bass, and basically if you take an E shape and then move it down a string, okay, and then up a fret, what you're playing there is a C major seventh with a G bass, okay? And go from that, and then go to a B minor, but take the bar off and just make the B there, and then play the G note open, the G string open, okay? And you're getting it's a B minor something or other. I don't know exactly, to be honest, okay? But if you go from a E minor to a D, to that C major seventh to a chord, to that B minor odd chord, okay? That's lovely. Let's just very quickly try it with that tune. I got it wrong, sorry. Pretty good, I think. Okay, I think I'll leave it there for this session. So yeah, again, just don't worry too much about playing the right chords, because there's so many different interpretations. Just find the basic chords within the key and then build up from there. And just, yeah, minor chords, minor keys, you can be a bit more free, all right? Watch, if you as a guitarist there, watch their hands, watch they're doing, and ask people. Don't be afraid to ask as well. Oh, that tune did something a bit odd there. Can you just show me in between tunes? Don't worry about, you know, certainly the mess session I go to, there's no real protocol. It's all very open-ended, and people are more than happy to help. And also, use the session.org. Have a pen and paper with you, wherever your phone out, and just, if you hear a tune you like and you think, oh, I like that, but I didn't quite get it, and I'd like to learn how to do that, make a note of the. I Google it actually, and then the first thing that comes up in the name of the tune, find it on the session.org. I email it to myself, and then when I come home, I work on it. And on the session.org, they normally have, for all of the tunes, if you scroll down a bit, there'll be lots of sheet music. This one here, it's got sheet music with the chords on it. Okay, again, those chords might not necessarily be what other people play. There's no definite correct chords to it, but they will be a really good starting point, and they might be fantastic. Or you might want to take them as a starting point and play around with it a little bit. Okay, so the next video will be kind of like little passing tricks and things like that, and maybe I'll do the capo as well and mention that. But hopefully, as I said, it's all just based on my experience. You might not agree with it, but hopefully just some people starting out going to folk sessions will find that helpful. And any questions or comments, please do feed me back, and I'll add extra things in. Thanks then, bye-bye.